Hey folks, well welcome to Computer Science 330 Programming Languages for I guess the spring of 2021. Thankful goodbye to 2020. Actually, I can't really say that. As I'm recording this, it's still 2020, but hopefully you're watching this in a happier year. However, let's see. So I think today what I want to do is just kind of run through how the course is going to run. I'll give you just a tiny bit of background on the course itself, a little bit on the content, and a lot on all the sort of administrative details that are going to come along with this. Let's see, so I'm going to be running in this kind of format for most of the term. What I'll be doing is providing you with videos for each of the different topics, and then in the lecture times, we'll meet for a half hour or so for each lecture and a half hour or so for each lab to go over, discuss things, maybe do some examples, handle any questions that you've got, so that I can kind of keep track of where you are and you can keep track of what I'm babbling about. So that's the plan in a nutshell. I am going to get rid of the little talking head down here because it is way too distracting for me. However, okay, so the idea is this is a study about the theory of programming languages, the implementation of programming languages. So we want to look at why they're designed the way they are, how they're built, some of the implications in the design decisions and the implementation decisions. So there's going to be quite a mix of theory and really applied stuff. So we're going to take a look at Common Lisp as a language in the beginning. So we'll probably spend about half of the term on that from an applied point of view, just because it takes such a different approach to the way things are done. And so we'll spend a good sort of 5-6 weeks going through and introducing that and getting a reasonable understanding of the language. And then in the second half of the course, we'll focus mostly on C and C++ and get a deeper look at how different language features are implemented. So this is going to mean you're going to need a decent understanding of things at the assembly language level and the architectural side of things, because we are going to look at how different language features actually get implemented and run at the assembly language level. You're going to need decent programming skills, both for the Lisp side and the C and C++ side, because we are going to look at things in a fair bit of detail. You are going to need a decent understanding of data structures, because a lot of what we do is either based on or looking at the data structures, again, in much greater depth. So just to skip ahead a little bit, I am going to be fairly strict on the prerequisites, needing 260 and 261 and 265. I can be a little flexible on, if you just missed a C and wound up with a C- or something like that. I'm okay there. But yeah, I do want you to have those courses behind you with a reasonable understanding of them. So that's kind of the content side of things. Let's see, I'm Dave Wessels, so my email address, as usual, is david.wessels@VIU.ca. What we'll be doing is office hours by Zoom. Just email me that you'd like an appointment. I'll do them Mondays and Thursdays from 1:30 to 2:30, and we can book 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it might take, and I will meet you on Zoom. Again, what we'll do is the first 20 minutes to half an hour of each of the lecture and lab slots we'll use for a Zoom session. So again, I'll give you some extra discussion, some extra examples, anything that sort of crops up as the term goes along that I think you need to know about that didn't make it into the videos, and any questions that you've got we'll handle in those. Those sessions will be examinable, so I really strongly recommend, if you can possibly make it, that you attend those. I know that time zones make that really tough for people, and there are some schedule clashes as well. So if you can't make them, I will record them and post those on VIUtube so you can catch them there later. Let's see. So if we've got the first 20 or 30 minutes of each of those sessions for the Zoom, then I'll leave the other hour or so of them so that you can, again, book time just like with the office hour slots. So you can just send me an email, say, can we meet for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or something like that after the lecture or after the lab. The Zoom information, so the meeting ID and the passcode went out in the welcome email a while back, but they're also posted on the VIULearn page for CompSci 330, so you can get them there. Let's see, what else do we have going on? Again, the course outline has got all the official details. So the course website with everything on it is the csci.viu.ca /wesselsd courses csci 330. So that is the source of all wisdom for the course. Again, up at the top, a bunch of quick links. So there's one for the course outline, and that, of course, has all the official versions of the information. So pretty much the official version of most of what I'm babbling about today. So do take some time to go through that and make sure you're familiar with it. That welcome email that went out earlier, there's a copy of the letter posted there, so you can have a look at that if you like. What we'll do for each of the lab and lecture sessions, again, is to have a Zoom discussion. So what I will do is post kind of a little blurb ahead of time about what I expect to cover in that half-hour session for any given day. So again, for the Thursday, January 7th, there'll be a rundown of kind of what I want to talk about in that half-hour Zoom session. So you can have a look at what we'll be talking about for each of the different lectures and labs before the Zoom session. Usual link to my tech notes page with all the things that may or may not be helpful if you've got something going wrong technically. There's a section on the quizzes that we'll talk about in a bit. So a blurb on all the different quizzes for the course, blurb on the labs, and again, I'll come back and talk about all that in a minute. Blurb for all of the different lectures. So what's going on is for each of these, I'll have the slides posted and links to the YouTube video and the VIUtube copy of that video. So what I would like you to do is to view those prior to the Zoom discussion session. So the idea would be that you go through the pair of videos that I haven't posted yet for January 7th. And then again, each week I'll talk about what you need to, or each session I'll talk about what you need to view for next session. So labs, lectures, there's a page of all sorts of fun and wonderful things about Lisp that we'll talk about later, another one for C++ that we'll talk about later, another one for Lex and Yak that you're going to have lots of fun with about halfway through the term, and then a blurb on the final exam. And again, we'll get to that many months from now. So again, the course webpage has got most of the wisdom for the course. The other thing that you're going to be using is VIULearn, which is where I'll post announcements, where I'll post the recordings of the Zoom sessions. Those will only go on VIUtube, not on YouTube, just for privacy reasons. So the Zoom recordings, announcements, and then the quizzes and final exams will be run through VIULearn. We'll use our usual processes for distributing and submitting labs through Git repositories. So if you're familiar with that, we should be good there. I did have a look through the class roster, and I know pretty much everybody, so I think everybody's got a reasonable handle on the joys of Git by now. In terms of the assessment for the course, there's 6 labs, 6% each. They all count. So it's 36% total for your final mark is on the labs. I think I will post a bonus lab just in case folks, wind up with problems on one of the labs over the course of the term. But we'll talk about that a little later. For quizzes, they'll essentially be there'll be a lab every 2 weeks and there'll be a quiz every 2 weeks, and more or less alternating. So I will drop your worst quiz mark. Quizzes will be 8% each, so that's 40% of your final mark, and then the rest is your final exam, so 24% for the final exam. You have to pass the lab portion, so you need at least 18% out of that 36 for the labs, and you have to pass the final exam, so at least 12 out of the 24 for the final exam to pass the course. Hopefully that won't be a problem. I did find that doing the bi-weekly quizzes in 265 at least really seemed to help the pass rate for the course. So hopefully things will work out well there. The first lab will be Monday, January 11th. The first lecture is, the first Zoom session will be January 7th for the lectures. And again, Monday the 11th for the labs. And the first real quiz will be on January 22nd, so we'll have time to talk about that before then. I will post a practice quiz on VIULearn, so you can try that out on January 7th. So essentially that'll be available for about 12 hours on the 7th, and you can just take it sometime in there. Practice quiz isn't for marks, it's just to give you a chance to play with the tool, and a way for you to let me know that you're taking part in the course. Let's see, administrative stuff. Prerequisites. Again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but the only one I'm really willing to waive is 162. And again, I can be flexible on the C versus C minus for the prerequisite grades, but I do want you to have 260, 261, and 265. If you're waitlisted in one of the sections and there's a seat free somewhere else, grab it. It doesn't matter which section you're in at all. I don't mind which lab session you pop into for the Zooms, or if you show up for more than one. So, and the deadlines are the same for everybody for everything. So it really doesn't matter which section you register in, just grab any free seat. In terms of the wait lists, if we do have a couple of extra bodies on the wait list, I can accommodate that. So I can add, I think, up to 5 extra seats. So we can probably get everybody in the way things are looking right now. So we should be okay there. No-show policy, I'm supposed to enforce this. So if you're not quote-unquote there on the first day of class, I'm supposed to deregister you. So I'll give you 3 ways to let me know that you're actually participating. So in that first Zoom session on January 7th, just fire me a message in chat that says you're here, and make sure I can tell who it is. So if your name isn't obvious from whatever ID you're using on Zoom, then do make sure you tell me who you are, but you can let me know in chat. Or you can fire me an email that day. It'd be better if you told me on the 7th, but if something goes horribly wrong and you forget, then it's the morning of the 8th, fire me something then too. Or you can submit the practice quiz that I mentioned earlier. So if you submit that on the 7th, actually I think that's only scheduled to run on the 7th right now. So if you fire me an email, do the practice quiz, or just send me a message in the chat session in Zoom, we should be good, and I will mark you as part of the course. Let's see. I think I mentioned that the course webpage is that beastie there. And again, pretty much everything is there except the actual quizzes and announcements through VIULearn. So it's pretty much broken down by week and by topic. So usually I'll give a link to the slides, the videos on YouTube, another link to them through VIUtube, and then if there's any extra web material, I'll post links for that as well. So again, typical layout will be, there'll be a link for the slides, a link for the VIUtube, a link for the YouTube, and once in a while, let's see if there's an example in here someplace. There must be one in here somewhere. And again, they're roughly broken down by week. Yeah, links to other material that might be handy. So, that source is the main repository for Wisdom. Again, I'm assuming you will have watched the material for a given lecture before the Zoom session so that we can actually talk about it, and I can handle questions and give more explanation there. Again, I'll post a checklist for what we'll talk about in each Zoom session ahead of time, and I'll record the Zoom sessions and post them on VIUtube actually, so you can access them through VIULearn after each lecture. So there's the plan that way. The quizzes. Again, these will be basically every 2 weeks. They'll be kind of a mix of theory and applied material. They'll be run through VIULearn. For each of them, you'll have 50 minutes to do the quiz, and it'll be available for a 12-hour period from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening, Nanaimo time, on the given date. So anywhere in that 12-hour window, you can do the quiz. You'll have 50 minutes once you start. I have set it so that it doesn't actually cut you off after the 50 minutes, just in case somebody runs into technical issues that prevent them from completing it in the 50 minutes. What it does do is it lets me know where you got to in that 50 minutes. So if you go over, I'll know it, and I'll know where you got to, and we can work things out afterwards. So you don't have to panic if something goes mildly wrong. Anything that does go wrong this term, again, since we're in such a weird format, just email me or catch me on Zoom or something like that, and we can talk it through and work something out. Again, practice quiz will be available for January 7th from 7 till 7, so you can have a go at that. Again, it's not for marks, and no questions in it are mandatory. Anything you don't want to answer, just go ahead and skip. It's basically just looking at what resources you've got available to you and what kind of a background you've got for the course, just to give me more information about the class. And again, the first real quiz starts on the 22nd. Mix of discussion and applied questions. And for each of them, at least hopefully a week or so ahead of time, I'll post a short video talking about the content for that particular quiz. All right, and then the labs. So, half dozen labs, probably plus a bonus lab towards the end. Essentially, there'll be 2 weeks for each of them, and so there'll be more or less 2 Zoom sessions for each lab. And again, they'll be distributed by Git, submitted through Git, so if you need to review that you can go back and have a look at it. But hopefully the processes for that are pretty familiar for everybody by now. Again, I will assume that you've gone through the material for the lab and looked at the video for the lab before we have the actual session, the Zoom session. It will mean that you've got to SSH into our servers, distributed through Git, collected through Git. And again, I'll follow the same sort of process as I do for the lectures. I'll post a video talking about the lab, I'll post the web page with the lab requirements, I'll post the Git repository so that you can pull it, and you've got a chance to go through all of that before we have our actual Zoom session. All right, the first official lab will be Monday the 11th, and again, they're going to be essentially due every 2 weeks, but we'll talk about that as we get to the labs themselves. So, I think that's everything about the sort of administrative aspects for the course. So what I will do is post the first couple of videos for January 7th. Then we'll again get into the introductory material for the course itself, tell you what kinds of things we're actually going to focus on, and get into it a little bit. So for those, once they are actually posted, they should be available somewhere down here in the lecture section. So again, that'll be this one of what the course is actually about once it exists and once I've actually finally posted it. I did stick in a link for just a short list of links to everything that's on YouTube. So again, most of these I haven't posted yet because I haven't recorded them yet. There are a bunch that I recorded towards the end of last year that are already posted, but that's essentially the idea. Is for each week I'll post kind of links to the YouTube videos for the different topics, and the same thing for the quizzes in the labs. I'll post a link for each of the bits and pieces of quiz information and lab information. All right, I have babbled far too long already. I will let you go. Email me if you have questions, and if not, I will see you in that first Zoom session on the 7th. Enjoy your time until then.